Welcome, everybody.
Welcome. Hi, hello, welcome. I'm Rebecca Richards. I am co-director of the Belmont Gallery of Art, together with my co-director, Adine Storer. We'd like to welcome everybody to the Nourish reception, our virtual reception for the Nourish exhibit. As everybody knows, this is a hybrid exhibit where we have a number of pieces on site at the Belmont Gallery of Art here in Belmont. And we have an even larger number of works collected in the virtual gallery space. So we wanted to give people, this is just a very quick, slightly static overview of the show here in Belmont. There's a couple of little alcoves where we'll get to see some of that work later. But you get a sense of the show here, the full show. And I just want to mention how it came about. Yes. We actually had been trying to figure out what would our next show would be. As most of you know, during the pandemic, we tried to have a series of art exhibits that had to do with sort of lifting the human spirit while we were feeling isolated and frightened during the worst of the pandemic. And the idea of nourishment actually came about a few years ago from an artist in the show, Lauren O'Martian, who actually also is a food writer. And we thought maybe this is the time to put out the call for this theme. And not only did we get a number of food related pieces, which was sort of our initial intent, but even in the call, we said, if there are other things that keep you nourished, have kept you nourished during the last 18 months, please submit that kind of work as well. And Adine and I were very pleased that in addition to a number of the food pieces, we did get other kinds of work related to sort of nature and the outdoors, the sea, gardens, green spaces, also enlightenment, what feeds the soul. For some people, it's their faith. Other people, it's books, it's other kinds of things. So we were very pleased again with the amount of work that we received. And again, this is the show in Belmont. We are open now for in-person viewing. We had a very nice turnout on Sunday afternoon last week of people coming through the gallery. And tonight we have 6 artists that we've invited to speak about their work in the show and how it relates to the theme. I'm going to turn the floor over to Adine, and she's going to talk a little bit more about some of the artists who are speaking here tonight.
Okay, I'm just looking to see if anyone's still in the waiting room. Okay. So we want to go through, we have 6 artists here tonight. And we wanted them to be able to talk about some of their work actually as this video runs. The first, the 3 pieces stacked is Donna Calais has beautiful work. Donna does these beautiful still lives that are just so real. You want to reach in and grab the fruit and vegetables. I'm gonna let this continue to go around as we see the rest of the show. The different things Rebecca was talking about, the different things that nourish people, like the ocean. Certainly standing on the shore of the ocean can be such a wonderful, nourishing thing. Keep looking around. You can, the gallery is open. We are going to be open on Sunday, Halloween, and Rebecca's promised me that there's going to be trick-or-treating candy and everything.
I will have a big bowl of candy.
Yeah, there's still some people coming in, Rebecca, so I'm just sort of going along.
You can
here.
See, right, this is sort of our tea, sort of tea category area here. And yeah, it was actually one of the things that Adine and I, we love the creative challenge of as we're putting a show together and we get a number of, in some ways, sometimes disparate pieces, and how we are able to put them together to make a cohesive show. And that's part of what we really love doing. It's hard work, but when it comes together in a good way, it's very gratifying and exciting for us. And so you can see, and sometimes we have happy accidents where we get a grouping of things coming through and we just say, that's the category. And actually Doina, who's going to talk tonight, one of her photograph is entitled Enlightenment. We said, oh yes, that's a perfect category for things that are more sort of connected to the spirit and the soul and so on. It's a beautiful show. both the virtual show and the online show. Gotten some very positive feedback.
It's kind of, you can have your cake and eat it too. Having, we can fit everything into a virtual show, right? But to have the walls, to be able to hang pieces on the walls and show people what they really look like in context with each other is a real treat. And that's all thanks to Rebecca. She was the one who handled in bringing in all the art and hanging all the art. Richard was a huge help as usual. Our
board member and installation specialist.
Installation, that's what was stuck on my tongue, installation specialist. But, and it's nice to see things in the real gallery again. And that's it. So I'm just going to do one last check to see if anyone's still in the waiting room. And I think everybody's up. One more, I'll keep adding them, but we'd like to go on to the part now where we ask our artists to talk about their work. And we saw Donna's there, and I'm going to try and switch. Here we go. Here's her piece in the gallery, her 3 pieces stacked. Just, I love how her pieces work together because they're always these beautiful squares with the bright colors. But on the virtual website, here they are, and here's the information about them. And Donna, would you like to tell us a little bit about what Nourish means to you and how you create these beautiful pieces?
Rebecca, were you going to say something?
I was going to say, maybe just to give, we should have said, maybe you guys, the artists, can give just a very brief sort of little bit of bio information about yourselves. Like, I know, Donna, that you were and are an art teacher. I think that's interesting for people to know about.
Yes, please do.
Okay, well, I'm glad you think that. So, hi, everybody. I'm Donna Calleja. I am a still life painter working in acrylics for the last number of years. I started my art making many years ago, and drawing and printmaking, but in the last number of years, it has been acrylic painting, and on usually on a smaller scale as this. As Rebecca mentioned, I had a long career as a high school art teacher, the last in a few schools, but the last 18 years at Watertown High School, so close to Belmont. And I live in Watertown, and I've been retired from that full-time teaching for about 2 years. I still teach adult classes in a few places, and I'm really enjoying that. So, as soon as I saw this theme, I was like, oh my goodness, this is going to not only be wonderful for the type of work that I do, but I knew it was going to be a really beautiful show with everybody's work. And in fact, as we look online, that absolutely holds true. I think on the surface, the work that you're seeing in the show, it would seem like Nourish. It's fruit, it's veggies, it's, and all of that, that nourish physically our bodies. But really, I take great interest, and I'm always drawn to the color, the texture of different natural objects, whether it's plants, shells, fruit, leaves, anything really from nature. And what my interest in as an artist is to, not paint things as they are found and in nature, but to bring them back to my studio area and arrange them almost like an abstract painter would arrange shape and color and texture and blend the various elements, and thinking about my backgrounds and my table spaces, or inventing space in some cases. So I like to have a little bit of both the observed world, but also to put it together in a way that really is from my imagination, so to speak, in terms of the spatial quality. I mean, I also think the act of painting is very nourishing, or creating for that matter, in any media that any of us work in. And I think just with this last year and a half that we've had, the idea that I could retreat to my art making and kind of block out all the horrible things that were happening to everyone was really just great for my own spirit. And last but not least, I really want to thank Aideen and Rebecca and all the art venues in the area who pivoted so quickly and kept things going for not only artists, but art viewers, because the last thing that I find so nourishing is not only the ability to make my own work, but the ability to absolutely delight and enjoy the work of others. And so I thank all of you for that, to keep us in touch with our art viewing, as well as our giving us a venue for our art making. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I mean, and Aideen and I are nourished when we look at all this amazing art too. I mean, we love doing it. Yeah. It's just wonderful.
Is Martha here?
I don't know if she's here. So
yes,
maybe...
I'm here. Hi.
Oh, hi, Martha. Hi.
Nice to see you all. Thank you so much for having all this happen in person and all your hard work. It's been terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have these pictures of your pieces in the gallery, and then I have another slide that shows the pictures as we have them in the virtual gallery.
Oh, okay.
I particularly love to see the tea dress hanging on the wall, and to know sort of physically what it looks like and the shape.
There it is.
Yeah.
Well, first, you asked a little bio. I work out of my studio at home. I'm a self-taught artist. I started with clay years ago and just switched into textiles exclusively about 8 years ago. So you'll see a lot of hints of my past work. I'm a retired costume designer. So costumes is in my blood and dress construction is in my blood. So you'll see that. This is the tea dress that you were mentioning, Aideen. I just want to read a little bit about what I said first, and then I can answer questions about the construction. The title of this piece happens to be a quote from a Salada tea label. And I use the label here at the center of the paper brooch on the dress. You can see it, the yellow labels there. The dress is embellished with tea bags and tea-dyed cheesecloth. The hem of the dress is dipped in tea to create a color story with tea staining. And the dress is made of a vintage christening gown. The dress is 35 inches tall. As the title implies, a sip of tea might nourish one's creativity. For me, the nourishment happens while sipping tea with a friend, two friends who nourish each other with laughter, trust, and shared history. So this is, a friend of mine gave me some christening gowns, and this, I took one of them apart. This is actually the lining of a very beautiful gauze, beautifully embroidered christening gown, but the lining intrigued me. And you were asking about the techniques that I used?
That would be lovely to hear more about it, yeah.
Well, the sleeves, both the sleeves, you can see from the slide on the right, one of the sleeves, both the sleeves are embellished with tea bags. The one on the right here, I snipped off the stapled part of the tea bag and left the strings on and attached, sewed them onto the sleeve, the end of the cuff of the sleeve. And the other sleeve you can see clearly in the left-hand slide. And that I created something similar to the collar, just ruffling the tea bags and creating a ruffle. And I placed full tea bags under the collar so that the collar stands out. So if you look at the dress, you'll see full bags of tea under there. It's all dried. The bottom of the dress has been dipped in tea, and that's what you see, the edge that you see, that dark, yes, that's it, that dark brown line is the top of the soaking. So the tea travels up the dress and the darkest dye goes up to the top. And then I took press tea bags and sewed them onto the hem. I don't think we have a slide of that, but anyway, you can see they're tied onto the hem with a metallic thread. And the cheesecloth is on the, as we looking at it, the right side of the dress. That's also stained with tea.
I also have slides of your other pieces in the show here. Becky's quilt.
Oh, Becky's quilt. This was hard because it has two sides. I have to read you what I said. This quilt is about 28 inches long and 8 inches high. My children nourish me, nourish me. I have 3 daughters. Nurturing is a two-way street. As caretakers nurture their children, the children nurture their caregivers. As adults, my 3 daughters continue to nourish me with support, advice, and love. When each graduated from high school, I created a quilt to celebrate who they were at that moment, their personalities and their passions. At that moment, they nourished me by inspiring my work, and they still do. Becky's quilt celebrates my youngest daughter. She's a creative powerhouse. The quilt fabric includes scraps remaining after she made new clothing out of a dress she found at a used clothing store. The portrait photos transferred to cloth are collected from a selfie session with her phone and a prom pic. The photos are framed and embellished with machine stitching to accentuate her crazy expressions. It's not surprising that her career is in the theater.
Not surprising at all.
What I did here, I'm trying to, let's see, okay. What I did here was take the photos, and on the front of the quilt, the pictures here are the front and the back. On the front of the quilt are the pictures. And on the back of the quilt, I took my sewing machine and drew with the sewing machine. That's called, I call it thread drawing. And actually drew on top of the photos to create some crazy little figures that I think are living somewhere inside her. She's filled with energy and creativity.
It's just wonderful. And then this one is beautiful. Thread, thread, thread.
This quilt is about my workstation where I work at home, what the studio is. What nourishes me and so many artists is the act of creating something that did not exist before. This quilt is a portrait of my studio where that creating happens. The thread-covered rectangles are lint roller papers. After hours of creating, I use a lint roller to clean the studio floor, picking up the bits and pieces of unused threads and textiles that fall to the floor as I work. The spool labels I found on vintage threads and contemporary threads that I use in my work. And I brought with me a lint roller paper so you can see what I'm talking about. So these are the lint roller papers that I tear away after cleaning the floor. If I don't feel like taking out the vacuum cleaner, it's the quickest way to clean the floor. And I've attached them to the quilt and then covered it with tulle so that all the little threads and things don't fall forward.
That's fantastic.
Can I actually ask I wanted to ask Martha a question.
Sure.
Martha, you had a piece in the Artful Nature exhibit.
Yes.
Which daughter? Well, I think it was also inspired by one of your daughters, but it had to do with
Elma.
the garden.
Yes, Elma. She's
Okay.
a weaver. She's a weaver and a biologist. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Because that was a lovely piece as well. I remember that piece. Okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. See, as you see, my children inspire me.
They're just wonderful pieces, Martha. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Carol Wintle. Rebecca, would you like to say anything as introduction?
Yes, sure. So Carol Wintle has been a longtime BGA artist. We've been working with Carol for a number of years. She's been in numerous shows in the BGA, and her work is always, it's always wonderful when her work comes through a call. She also was part of a 3-woman exhibit. I think it was the first one I ever curated with Helen Canetta and Anne, what was Anne's Johnstone, that 3-woman show. But anyway, Carol is somebody who is a mixed media artist. She also has an interesting background, which she will describe herself. But she has 3 pieces in this show. One is in the sea theme. I mean, yeah, that sort of section. And then she has 2 in the sort of gardens and green spaces. But I'll just turn it over to Carol. She's been a delight to work with all these years, and she'll have some interesting things to say, I'm sure. Carol, are you here? Oh, did she disappear?
I'm mute. Here I am.
Ah, there she is.
Thank you very much, Rebecca and Nadine. So I'm a collage artist, and I'm also a psychotherapist and an activist. And sometimes the themes from those other elements make themselves into my the collages that I've created over the years. My mother was a recognized artist as well as my younger sister, and I was always considered a wannabe. And I tried, I just couldn't do anything realistically. And then I took my first collage class, and it was like, boom. It was like, oh my God, that's my medium. And I just took off with it. And I used to, every Friday night, I would make collages for 5 hours, and it was my bliss. I was just in bliss every Friday night for years and years and years and years and years and years. And so for the longest time, I had a huge amount of materials to work with. I would go to the Belmont Library where they have a magazine. They used to have a magazine exchange, and I would get magazines that way, pick up catalogs in other places. And then during the pandemic, it shrunk down to, I didn't have those ways of acquiring paper materials to use in my collages. So my friends came through for me, and they would drop off on my porch catalogs and calendars and, all kinds of paper scraps and everything, so that I had things to continue to work with. So when I go to make a collage, I've just got folders and folders and boxes full of papers. And so I'll just kind of pick out the ones that are speaking to me at that time. And I'll have a big pile next to me. And I'll just let one image kind of pop out at me. And then I take and I use an artist, high quality artist glue stick to put the image down, not entirely. I might put it just in the center so that the edges are open so things can be slid underneath it. And then I'll go through and I'll see what comes next. And I just kind of add, I never ever think ahead of a theme, or, I mean, rarely, unless it's like a political theme. But I just kind of let one piece lead to the next piece, lead to the next one, and let the colors and the textures and the shapes and things just kind of lead me until it just grows and grows and grows and grows until the whole page is filled. And then now sometimes I also work with different art mediums. And so sometimes I have a painted background, acrylic. I use acrylic and watercolor and pastels and magic markers and whatever kind of art medium that I can think of. I don't use oils though. And so sometimes I create a background and then I put everything on the background, or sometimes I'll fill in the background after the rest of it has happened. And so the Serendipity 7, which is at the top there, that's one of my favorite styles, which is just chock full of images. And I often have like windows and doors. There are so many of my collages have windows and doors. I'm drawn to that. And trees, and there's always like some kind of, there's just always nature is incorporated in. And I go for the surrealistic. So where there's, a cat who is twice as large as a person, and the flowers are as big as houses, And I just love that kind of thing. And in the Serendipity 8, the one to the right bottom, I took a lot of windows and doors and created a house out of them, which is in the lower left-hand corner. And then, so it goes from the very complicated, which the Serendipity 7 is very complicated, to the very simple, which is the Serendipity 9. And that when I'm all done with the collage, I take acrylic medium, matte medium, it's called, and I brush it over every square of the collage, and I take a whatever this is called, I forget. I take one of these scrapers and I work it. So sometimes images get altered because I'll get attached to how it looks, you know, when I first finish it. But when I work it in to make it last a long time and to work out all of the bumps and make everything very flat and blended in together. And so sometimes I have to, you know, recreate and redo certain images if they get altered when I, you know, do my finishing of them. And then like with the Serendipity 9, that has a lot of pastel in it. So I'll use a fixative to spray over the pastel when I'm done. And so that it nourishes me so much. Like I talked about, just being in bliss, creating collages just puts me, when things are working and things are coming together, like I'll have the times that I'll make stuff and I just won't like what I do and I can't think of anything to do. But when it all comes together, I'm just so happy. All the cells in my body are happy and my entire being is nourished. So there's the process that's nourishing, but when the product's all done, I just love looking at it, and that nourishes me just to stare at the images and see new things every time. Like in the one that's Serendipity 7, there's some dice in there, and I love to notice the different circular things. Some things are circular and some things are more vertical, and I'll just notice things, you know, I'll forget about them and I'll say, oh yeah, there's a triangle in there. And, you know, I like that pink over there. And I like how the pink here mixes with the pink over here. It's just endlessly nourishing. So thank you so much for inviting me to share. And it was a pleasure.
Thank you, Carol.
Now I want to go to the gallery, even though I'm in Maine. I want to go to the gallery and take a closer look to see how you know, use the medium and, you know, how things are smooth and I love getting details like that.
I just want to say, so Carol in the past taught a collage making class that the BGA presented, and it was very popular, very successful. Some beautiful work was generated through that workshop. And I've asked her in the past, and she's been pretty busy, but I am hoping that Carol will agree at some point in the near future to do another collage making class, because people really responded to it. So thank you so much, Carol. We're delighted to have you in the show as usual.
Thank you. BGA has nourished me over so many years.
That's wonderful.
Oh, I'm so
Thank
glad.
you. Thank you.
And I love the image of your friends coming and leaving paper on your porch. You know, it's like better than casseroles.
Paper. Yeah, they kept me nourished as well.
There you go. That's wonderful. Well, next we have Adriana Pratt.
Adriana, are you there? Oh, did we lose her?
She may be muted and she's just finding her way.
Hello.
There she is.
Yeah, well, thank you, Adine and Rebecca, for inviting me. Well, first for having made you smile in the show.
Yes.
It's online. The real one is here, so I brought it here. So you have
Great to see the real one.
So thank you for inviting me tonight after these amazing presentations by amazing talent. I love of you artists before me. So some thoughts about my artwork, but you mentioned that you wanted to hear about our bio a bit. So very quickly, I'm originally a scientist from Argentina. And I, yeah, and I moved to the States a number of years ago, like a few decades ago, a couple of decades, more than a couple, and I continue working in science at National Hospital, completing my PhD, work in biotech, and 3 years ago I finally gave up all that and I became full-time artist. But before that, I was already working. I calculate that it's about like 20 years that I've been painting very, so I didn't want to do like a college, you know, education because one, it was very expensive and I didn't have the time. I had to work. So I had already a college education and it was the wrong thing to have for art, or I thought so. But anyway, but I wanted to be serious about, you know, so I studied all the, you know, basics of painting and drawing in the, mostly at the cultural, at the Cambridge adult education, yeah, with Phil Press and Barbara Baum. But I consider mostly that I do work, I'm a self-taught, I'm experiment. That's my art, my scientist. I experiment a lot with different media. So I mostly paint in oil, but I have now a very small studio here in my house. So I paint with acrylic. I am very passionate about creating more awareness, if we don't have enough, about the climate crisis, especially with my late work. And I'm also working in trying to find new ways to have more sustainable ways to add to my art practice. So that's kind of in a nutshell. So, and I exhibited in several places, but I am more recently have started to show at the Belmont Gallery of Art, and I love it. So thank you so much. So that's basically me in a nutshell. But I wanted to talk a bit, of course, about the piece that is in the show. So as an abstract artist who is inspired by emotions, evoked by either personal or by global issues that I'm very passionate about, when I decided, you know, what piece to submit to the NOURISH call, I knew that Made You Smile was going to be the perfect choice. And I will try to describe in a bit of poetic way why I think so. So the story of the painting is that this past May, in the euphoric season that marked the end of our long pandemic winter, I was at the studio. And I was delighting in the warmth of the sunlight coming into my studio windows, through my studio windows. And if you recall, despite the heat and the recurring rain that we had, summer was in bloom in this part of the world as we started to recover our joy. But it was cautiously that we recover our joy. So at the time when I was with this canvas, my mind wandered and suddenly it sunk into my childhood memories. So I had an unexpected thought, a vision of the broad smile of a dear friend, their laughter. All that surprised me while I was executing this oil painting. So the memories were so vivid and warm and beautiful. It was a splendid moment. As if in a trance, I gravitated towards a palette that is often used to depict still lifes of scrumptious bowls of fruit. And in fact, I saw that David Morris has a photo in the show, a welcome side, I believe is the name, yes. That he has, the fruit has the different colors that I have here. So that was interesting because I was thinking about that before I was really done looking into the exhibit, and it was another one of those beautiful moments of feeling the connection. So at the time, pondering the lightness of life, and the value and the power of a smile kept alive in my memory over all these years, many of them. My own cautious joy blossomed, and I felt hopeful for our future. Moments like this one and the creations conceived during these magic moments keep my soul nourished in these challenging times, especially. And it is now my wish that this image can bring joy, light, and hope to you, the viewers. So that's basically the story of the painting. And in addition, from a technical point of view, I wanted to point that I did it on a canvas that I found on the curb on a rainy day. Oh. So I managed to grab this painting, and it wasn't wet yet, and it was like a cityscape. So, and as I was painting, I usually, when I found, because I work a lot on repurposed canvases, I work with oil just in case, because I don't know what the other artists have used before me. So I tend to work in oil sticks or oil paint. And while I was painting, I was obligated, I guess, to add certain marks that came naturally, because I was trying to hide certain things that were happening. Like, for example, the person before had left pieces of the brush. Obviously they have used the brush that was very old or very bad, and as I was trying to take out the brush, hair, it didn't come out, so I had to come up with mark making, etc. So it was very interesting. So it was a fun piece to work on, and it has written risa, 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 or sonrisa, which is the Spanish for laughter and smile, on the yellow part. So that's
so beautiful. Thank
you. I know,
so
really wonderful comments. Wow, really, really.
I love how you described this sort of interaction with memories and emotion, and then this canvas that you happen to find. It reminds me of what Martha was telling us about picking up the threads with the lint. That it's like, this is what artists do. Is they tune into all these wonderful things and channel it into a piece like this, or it's so special to hear about it. This piece does make me smile.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad. That's the purpose. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A pleasure.
Doina.
Next we have Doina Ilescu. If I don't know if I'm saying that right, Doina, you can correct me.
Good job. You did a good job.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I think Rebecca was talking about your piece Enlightenment, how it inspired us to create a section not the virtual, but also the real gallery, to sort of have that space open to nurture the mind and the soul. It really does. I love them, both of your pieces.
Thank you. Well, I have to say, this is the first time that I'm doing something like this. And I really like to begin by saying how privileged I feel to be a part of this show and to be here with some really wonderful artists. It's been really nice to hear from everybody. And it's been a bit of a learning experience for me through this process, because I've actually taken some time to write out how I got to these photographs, but it's different from what the others have said tonight in terms of process. So if you'll bear with me, I would love to just kind of share with you a little bit about my background and how I got to these images. So my passion for photography began when I was 16, but really it wasn't until about 5 years ago that I began to take myself more seriously and create photographs rather than just make them. And at that time, I had joined a photo group in Mission Hill in Boston, which was an area that I knew nothing about, with people basically that I had never met. And I was challenged to be part of a year-long project that culminated in a small book and an exhibition about the essence of Mission Hill as seen through our collective photographs. Now, I know that this sounds like it's not related, but I actually get there. I was the only person in our group who had never lived in Mission Hill, and I really had to dig deep to uncover, what I felt was a representative subject. And that turned out to be the Diablo glass blowing studio in Mission Hill. And nearly every weekend for an entire year, I traveled back and forth from Belmont to Mission Hill, spending hours at a time creating many images that I hoped would capture what Mission Hill represented to me. And that's a community that's undergone a kind of transformation, changed by environmental pressures and outside forces to become the vibrant community that it is today. And that project made me a much more focused and deliberate photographer. And I created a series of images that told the story in an artistic or dramatic way rather than a documentary way, which, up until then had really been more my style. And after the Mission Hill group disbanded, I formed the Belmont Photo Group, which is a Facebook group drawing members from some of the surrounding towns. And when the pandemic hit, I had to work from home for 17 months. I also had the challenge of keeping my photo group engaged and active. And it was really during this period that I created photo challenges for myself and my group that focused on a variety of themes and subjects. And the two photos that you're seeing today, Enlightenment and Solace, are born from that time. The pandemic really gave me the luxury of time, which the frenetic pace of working in the city hardly ever allowed. And I felt more nourished at home because slowly over time, I really began to rediscover the simple pleasures that life should offer all of us, and that really is a chance to reconnect with the things that make us whole. For me, the opportunity to reflect on those things photographically resulted in these carefully constructed photos that represent a departure from a life of chaos into moments of solace and enlightenment, the names that I gave to these two photos in the exhibit. And these images are my expression of what really nourished me. Stylistically, I like to make moody photos. And for me, that means having things emerge from dark corners, while at the same time infusing them with natural light. And there's a sense of mystery and narrative that unfolds when I'm successful at this. And I hope that Enlightenment and Solace are good examples of that. I happen to have an entire set of those Demitasse cups in all different colors, and somewhere down the line, I'm hoping to incorporate them into a bigger project. So thanks for participating this evening. Thanks for listening to me, and I hope you enjoyed the exhibition.
Oh, that's just wonderful, Dana. I love how you make the connection between your experience with the Mission Hill group and this group you've created in Belmont. And you actually have given us a way to see that the pandemic had a nourishing aspect to it. It opened up time and space for us to do and be inspired. And I love these pieces. They remind me of the moments that I come into a room and I say, oh, look at the light. Look, I have to remember that. I need to come in with my camera at this time. And then I don't remember. So thank you for being organized and laying this out for us, capturing those moments.
You're welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
I remember that piece that you had in a prior show with the beautiful, intense blue. Now, was that part of your Mission Hill series?
That was part of the Mission Hill series. That was
so beautiful. I mean, I remember that distinctly and how beautiful a piece that was. So it's interesting. As soon as you mentioned the glass blowing and so on and so forth, I was thinking, was that somehow connected to that? So,
turning was an interesting idea, that whole project overall. But when you watch really sand become something else, it's that transformative nature that generated that photograph. But that transformation, that project was such a transformation for me in growing myself and growing my work as a photographer. So I'm just really happy to be part of the show today.
Thank you. We're happy to have you here.
Thanks.
Okay, so Sarah, Sarah Pano, are you here still?
I am here.
Thank you. So
Hello,
Sarah, you're a new artist for the BGA.
Yes.
And Adine and I loved your submissions to the show. And when I got to meet you in person at drop-off, you talked a little bit about your inspiration from your garden and so on. And I know that you're from Concord because you mentioned that. But I'm going to have you, we're going to give the floor over to you, and you can tell us all a little bit about your background and your work in the show.
Okay. Well, my background is I started art. I was at the School of Museum of Fine Arts in college. And so I was actually working in clay and sculpture during that time. But then I went off and became an acupuncturist. So I was an acupuncturist for about 30 years, actually. But around 17 years ago, I decided I wanted to learn how to paint. And I started studying at the Cordova School, their museum school. And I sort of retired from my work a few years ago and now have a studio at the Umbrella Center for the Arts. So what I found was during this whole pandemic that I found a lot of solace and nourishment and comfort in working in my garden. I have a piece of land here in Concord, and I have a large organic vegetable garden. And during this time when I was isolating in Concord, I would just spend hours and hours in the garden. And then I would, I'd harvest things and then I'd paint it and then I'd eat it. But so it's like farm to paint to table. So I do a lot of fruits and vegetables, and not everything I grow. I don't grow oranges, but I coming from a sculpture background too, I sort of love shapes and that kind of sculptural quality of a lot of the things that I paint. I love working with a lot of contrast. I like sources of light and like rich colors. Another passion of mine is tea. My mother, who has passed away, has given me so many teapots, whimsical ones and ones from my grandmother, and knowing how much I love tea, she'd always somehow find funny pots to give me. So I've painted a lot of teapots. This one with the oranges was sort of a zoomed in kind of view of having tea, with oranges in the afternoon, where I'd set it up by my window, and I, again, the comfort and nourishment of sitting, in a quiet place, journaling and having tea, and it sort of represents a place that I get so much enjoyment from. And let's see, I'm trying to think what else I can add here. I really appreciate being included in this show. Thank you, Adine and Rebecca. It was really an honor, and I hope to be involved more in the future.
We'd love that.
I'm trying to think what else I could say, but just all my work is in oil at this point, and just a lot of still lifes. I don't do only still life, but that's probably my love is of doing still lifes and realism.
I was going to say, when you see these pieces in person, I think even when they were submitted, when Adine and I first looked at them, there is an incredible sense of photorealism about these pieces, and it's just, I'm looking again at the winter squash. It's really pretty remarkable.
If that were a photograph, it would be a beautiful photograph.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful painting.
Yeah. Thank you. I definitely do like photorealism. I sometimes push it in colors and intensities and things like that more, because I find I really love color. But yeah, for sure, I really enjoy, creating more realistic type of paintings.
I do love looking at these three and looking at the shape of the green onions in the red onion piece, and then the shape of the spout on the teapot, and then the shape of the stems on the squash. they all sort of have this same feeling. It definitely speaks to your sculptural background. It's wonderful. It makes you want to sort of move as you're watching them. Wonderful, just wonderful.
Really, thank you.
So I want to say that when Adine and I were discussing who we would like to invite to speak, one of the things that we talked about was, you know, artists, your work is all different from one another. And I think that's really fascinating. And it's also intriguing to hear about your backgrounds, because we didn't know that Sarah was an acupuncturist for, I mean, it's really, you're all very unique, creative, interesting women. So I think that only adds to the sort of the richness of the exhibit, learning more about your backgrounds. I think it's absolutely fascinating. And the work, again, it all complements one another when you visit the virtual gallery or you walk through the in-person space in Belmont. So, I mean, like I said earlier, Dean and I are really nourished by, you know, having this show come together, seeing the art, working with wonderful, amazing artists such as yourselves. We did invite one of the male artists in the show, but he was unable to be one of the speakers this evening. But I think this has been a very full, rich conversation with each of you. So I think, are we going to open it up to there's a number of other artists who are also here tonight. We also always leave an opportunity for some questions and answers as well. So Adine, what should we plan to do next?
I think we could open it up. I guess, I don't know if Naomi's here, but Sarah was talking about teapots and how her mother left her teapots and gave her special teapots. You made a special teapot. Are you here?
Are you here, Naomi? Because she also works with clay, and several of you, including Sarah, and I think that Adriana and maybe one other of the artists mentioned they have a background working with clay. And that's what Naomi has in the show. She has this amazing polymer clay teapot inspired by children's books that she has.
Lyle Crocodile.
Yes, it's alongside.
I don't know, Naomi, you're not here?
Yeah, I am.
Oh, wonderful.
Hi.
I will. Hi. I know that there was a photograph of your teapot in the exhibit with Martha Heller's tea dress.
Right.
I can try and go back to that. And if you'd like to tell us anything about Sarah has her beautiful teapots, and oops, I went right by it, sorry. Here it is, over here on the right. This is Naomi's teapot.
I can just say a little. I should probably say I was a psychotherapist and a mental health worker for many, many years before I retired. And since I retired, I've just completely immersed myself in doing artwork, mostly, I have to say, jewelry. But this past couple of years, just a little pre the pandemic, I got obsessed with polymer clay and made a whole entire studio in my lower level, also known as basement. And I actually jumped into it so steeply that I have a ton of equipment, and I joined the New England Polymer Artists Guild, which is wonderful. Polymer is not actually a clay. It's polymer plastic, sort of. And it's really totally different. When I was working as a occupational therapist at Boston State Hospital before I went back to graduate school, we did have a kiln and we worked with clay and all of that. And it's very, very different, but I absolutely love it. And I was in a teapot challenge with my guild, and I didn't get this finished in time. Rebecca knows I'm terrible with deadlines. I'm always driving her crazy. So I can't say how much I appreciate her tremendous calm and patience over the years. We've known each other for about 25 or 30 years, I think. And so I didn't have it done in time for the challenge, but I did want to finish it for this show. And I have another piece that I'm almost finished, which is my daughter reading a book under the covers, and I call it undercover reading. So I love working in polymer. I think it's incredibly nourishing, but all the art stuff is what has sustained and nourished me. And I think we're in the process actually of building a big studio at our house so that I can really do this fully and not have it on the dining room table and on the bed. A friend of mine said she's afraid to come to my house because she thinks there will be beads in the bed. So when I'm not doing polymer, I do things with, you know, recycling zippers and recycling safety pins and just anything I can think of, little pieces of rust that I find. I just love upcycling. I love polymer. I'm passionate about it. I really pray that I don't get any more passions because I have more than I can stand in this lifetime. But right now it's kumihimo, which is Japanese braiding. I'm teaching a class Tuesday at Arlington Community Center. And they just called me to ask if I would teach again at Beach Street Center in Belmont, which I'll do. And it's a great bracelet. It was just beautiful. And so anyway, I love kumihimo. I love polymer. I love upcycling. I love the gallery, and I love everything that Aideen and Rebecca have done. And I think, Rebecca, you didn't give enough credit to your husband, who also helped with Richard Hill hanging the show.
This is true. Our Stephen and Richard. Here's to them. Cheers, cheers. I missed out on the physicality of hanging everything. And I usually love that part. So
it's great. You did a beautiful job. It's just beautiful. I have to say, as gorgeous as it is to see things virtually, when you're in the gallery and you just see the work firsthand, it is just so fabulous and so beautifully hung.
I'm going to have to come down.
You have to. Congratulations.
Yep. Thank you, Naomi. I saw Mary raised her hand. Did you have a question or did you want to share something?
And Dari's here too.
Hi, are you talking about me, Nadine?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, what I was trying to do was just make comments to say how beautiful these beautiful pieces are, but it looks like there's not a comment section. So then I lowered my hand.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming and saying so. It is a wonderful collection of wonderful pieces. It expands the mind.
Beautiful. Yeah, I had enabled video, but my video is not showing. I don't know why, but is that me or is that, did you disable video?
No, I haven't disabled video, so I don't know. But I'm not very adept at the Zoom stuff. I try.
Oh, here, let me see. Let's yeah, it's not doing it. It's not allowing me. That's okay. Thank you. Well, it's a beautiful show. These are such unique pieces.
It really does. It expands our vision. Did anyone else have a question for our artists or comments perhaps about their own art in the show?
I think Dari's here.
Dari, would you talk about particularly your beautiful little the postcard size still lifes of fruit and vegetables that people could collect and put together in a frame? Would be the perfect thing for your wall in the kitchen or the living room.
I'd be happy to. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I can't tell because right now I have Martha Heller's images up on the screen and I can't tell what's happening.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Wait,
yeah, I can stop sharing. Let me try that.
It's a beautiful. I really have to commend you and Rebecca for putting this together for the first time in so many months, and I was so thrilled to see Richard for 5 seconds.
Yes.
At a careful distance when I brought my work in. So my work, I have 2 large pear paintings, which were a big sort of a nourishing for me personally as an artist, because I paint small and detailed. I was just like, okay, I have this paper that my mother-in-law, who passed away, was a watercolor painter. And I had this paper, and it was, you know, large sheets, bigger than I normally paint. I'm like, I'm just gonna go for it. And I painted these two big honking pears with, you know, complementary colors to one another. And I really enjoyed it. And it was actually somewhat therapeutic. But then the thing that's closest to my heart, I have been painting small portraits of
the video's
fruit and vegetables, sort of postcard 4x6 size. And I have not framed them on purpose so that people could collect them as they want, because someone might say, oh, I would love to get the ingredients for salsa. And so they might want to buy, you know, a jalapeno and a tomato and an onion, and put those little paintings together. And people's wall space could be long and narrow. It could be tall and thin. So these little paintings could be framed together in a collage set up long and thin, or it could be spread out in a long, narrow thing, or it could be individual little 4x6s. So they're ultimately very flexible. And I've been having such a great time doing this, and it's been nourishing my spirit as well. And I've got another, I don't know, I think 12 in progress. I went to the last farmer's market yesterday. I got a really cool piquillo pepper with a curly stem and a little habanada pepper, which I never heard of before. Oh, there's Naomi's teapot on your feed. It's beautiful.
I'm hoping to come around to where your postcards are. That's all. Keep talking, Derek.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So this habanada pepper is like a habanero, but it's not hot and spicy. It has that lovely citrus flavor, theoretically. And the Belmont Library is doing a food workshop very soon. It might be even this weekend. I've forgotten the date, but Blonde Beauchamp, the Haitian chef. Oh, there's my little delicata. I see it there. So Blonde Beauchamp is doing this Haitian cooking session, doing this vegetable stew, and it calls for a habanero pepper, but my husband is very, very hot, spicy averse. So I thought, oh, I can do it again with this little habanado, which has the flavor of the habanero, but they're all beautiful. And I got a little tiny eggplant. So I have more things to paint. And so I have a persimmon going, and I don't know, I've got like 6 more fruits and 6 more veggies going, because I've been trying to do half and half. It's really, really, really fun and exciting for me as an artist, just and as a person who loves to cook these things, paint these things. So it's great. So I love this show. Your first show way back, I don't know, maybe it was 2012, that I think I had work in, was the garden to the kitchen to the table, I think it was called. And I had my personal series of fruits and vegetable paintings in that one. And it was very affirming to me as I was moving away from being a medical illustrator to trying to just be a plain vanilla regular artist, because I had a series of portraits of fruits and vegetables, and I won a People's Choice Award, and I was like, oh my God, me? Really? Wow. They like your pears. Yeah, there's you know, who was that thing was like, what? They like me, they really like me. So I was Field. Yeah, no, I was thrilled. So it was really not just inspiring, but I'm searching for the word here. It kept me going, you know. It made me feel like, okay, it's good. Is that something you want to keep doing? Yes, it is. I wanted to move on from being a medical illustrator because I felt as if it was limiting me in scope because I had started as a regular fine artist, and then I moved into the niche of medical illustration, which was very fulfilling for a really long time. But I wanted to get back to my fine art roots. So here we are.
I didn't know that actually.
You didn't know I was
Rebecca.
Derry, so I'm sorry, I've got a lot going on tonight as well, but I love those pair paintings so much, but I think, did you mention something about the framing? Or I mean, I loved how they're framed also. I mean, it's
the man that used to have hang-ups who took over, he now only has a shop in Brookline because of the pandemic. He had to shut down, and he framed them for me very quickly. We brought them to Brookline, and he brought them to my house to bring them, back. He delivered. He lives up north, I think maybe Tewksbury, or I forget where, but he offered to drop them off at my house, and he did a great job. And he wasn't prepared to do them so quickly. And then when I found out that you wanted to have both the paintings in the actual factual show, I called him, and he did them that day, and he dropped them off. So I was able to bring them over to the gallery in time for you to hang them without it being a real pain in the neck. He does a wonderful job. So it's Tom Copy, and I believe it's called, what does he call his new, I'm going to have to look it up.
We'll send it out to the artists if anybody's.
Yeah, but
interested.
He does a great job. He gives a discount for the Belmont Art Association members. And he brought all his framing supplies that he inherited from the former Hag-Up gentleman. And I miss having him in Belmont terribly, because it's really not so convenient to go to Coolidge Corner. But if you have a problem, he will pick up and he will deliver your artwork, and you can. Yeah, he's great. So, and if you want to go, to the Brookline Trader Joe's or any of those wonderful Jewish delis nearby, your prime location, or the movie theater is right there too. So we had a little road trip.
Wonderful guy. He's a wonderful guy, and he'll help you with the problem.
He did. Framers. And he can, whatever Naomi's working on, if it was a 3D piece, he would be able to frame that in a shadow box type thing if she wanted to display it as a 3-dimensional object.
So if we wanted to buy some of your little postcards, we could take them to him, and he could mat them all together, right?
Right.
or pairs or whatever.
Yeah. No, he could do the. As I said, I didn't frame those small guys on purpose because I thought people might want it.
I know. I might want it.
Only zucchini and squash, and some people might want all apples or pears, and some people might want salsa ingredients. Or
I love the idea of ingredients.
Yeah, it's fun.
Cool.
So I've been having such a lovely time. I haven't done an avocado yet, but I could do guacamole, then you can have the tomato and the avocado. But I'm very fond of cinnamon, and I just did a pomegranate. So I'm having a great time really with these. So as I said, they're nourishing my artistic spirit.
Excellent.
So thank you for the inspiration and the motivation.
Thank you for your participation. Were there any other questions for our artists, or any other artists who wanted to talk about their art?
What about, I see there's a lot of, Kay is here. Does Kay want to talk? Oh, Min is here.
Herb has his hand up.
Who does?
Oh, hey, Herb.
Oh, where is he?
Thank you, Herb. Do you have a question?
Octavio, we've been asked, somebody has requested that he talk a little bit about his piece too.
Oh gosh, I love Octavio's fish
story.
Well, could Herb,
where's Herb?
Go first.
Yes, Herb's first. Oh, there he is, right there, yes.
You want to hear the fish story?
Yes.
It's a sad story.
Okay, and then it's Herb's turn. Go ahead, Octavio.
Can you show the fish so that people know what I'm talking about?
Let me see what I can do here.
What is the fish? How is it being exhibited? I don't know.
It's in the video, but it doesn't have a very good picture of it. So I'm just trying to pull up the one on my computer here. Oh, try to find it. It's a wonderful piece. Do you have it hanging in your house?
It was hanging outside in the garden for a year. It hanged in my house in my kitchen for a couple of weeks before I gave it to you. But it was an outside sculpture, but it has a unique story, not very pretty, a very sad story of real life.
Here it comes.
And so I'm going to read the story. There's the fish. That fish was made about a year ago. And Rebecca asked me, I told a little bit about the story, and Rebecca asked me to write it. And so I wrote it, and it's the story. It says, The Undelivered Fish. I'm reading to you. A true fish story. A man from Huntsville, Texas, called me and asked me to make him a fish. I never met the man, but somehow he knew of me. You see, he said to me, now I'm buying a new home so that for Carol and me with a VA loan. In front of the house, I want to display a fish so that I can see it from inside while I'm sitting in the living room. I knew a little bit about him and responded with pleasure and a sense of artistic fulfillment. I know what you want, and I can do it in a short time. The fish will make you happier, I said. The house was bought and the fish was ready. And I even sent him a photo, this photo. And I was waiting for his new physical mail address so I could ship it. He died 3 days later. On July 22, 2020, he was 76 years old, born in 1944. The name of the man was Bruce Perkins, who was released from a Texas jail 1 month earlier after 27 years, out of a sentence of 30 years. He could have been released much earlier, but he had to admit his guilt. But there was no guilt to admit because he was innocent. Bruce had been falsely accused by his sons and wrongfully convicted by the Texas court of sexually molestation of his grandchildren in satanic rituals. These are 1990s, 1980s. Okay, it was during the moral panic of the 1990s when the mental health industry had lost its mind. Testimonies in courts were laden with the false memory recalls. Those were also the years of alien abductions, multiple personality disorders, and satanic cults. Therapists were obsessed, some still are, over unconscious and repressed recovered memory remedies. There's a psychologist said before, she knows what I'm talking about. The new research has dispelled or corrected all those theories and caused immeasurable damage in many families. So this, I typed this story, and this was supposed to be displayed with the fish somewhere, as Rebecca would have found out. I do have references of the literature. If you Google Bruce Perkins, you'll find a long story there.
Okay. Well, thank you for reading that, Octavio. It makes it a much more personal piece. It's very poignant.
This is real life, Adine.
Yeah.
Life is not what you see on television. This happens every day.
This is true. Real. Mark, I see you're raising your hand, but Herb Pierce had raised his hand earlier, and I just wanted to give him a chance. Herb, did you want to say something?
Any questions on the topic?
Oh, sorry, Ottavio. Yes.
Any questions here on the topic? On the topic of false memory and memory recall therapy?
Or about the fish?
No one knows anything about it?
That we'll save it for the next
fish,
show.
I want to contribute to the gallery, and so I had a fish, you know, an edible device, and so I decided to put in the word "eat fish." Eat
That's
fish.
Wonderful.
It's not so much a recommendation; it's an order. You eat fish.
There you go.
Okay, but now I'm making a bigger fish, which is about 50% done, and it's down in the basement. And if I had a picture, I would show to you. I do have a picture there. It's much bigger. It'll have legs. It'll be in my garden. Any one of you listening can come to my garden on Wynn Street. I have about 15, 20 big sculptures. They all steel. Come down, I'll give you a guided tour. And so this fish will be a big fish, and I'll tell you what, if you wait a second, I'll go down to the basement and pick it up and I'll show it to you, okay? It'll take me about less than a minute, and I use the camera from the computer here to show it to you. So
Ottavio, why don't you let Herb do his, and then they can come back to you. How's that?
Yeah, I think we'll come back to you, Ottavio. If you want to go bring up the fish from the basement, that sounds good.
Yeah, this will give me time to set it up. Very good, excellent.
Okay.
And I'll show you the fish in construction, and
right.
I'll go in the kitchen and set it up. Okay, so go ahead for the next person.
Okay, thank you, Ottavio. Herb, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say about, well, I don't know if you can show it ocean blue and then the colorful explosion.
Let me see. I'm sure I can find it and do a screen share. I don't have it in the slideshow, but
yeah,
I certainly have your images right here on my computer.
One of my processes, often I start a painting either plein air or from a photograph I take. And then about 30 or 40% into the painting, I stop looking at the original. And then I just do what I want, just let my imagination go. My best paintings are when I use my imagination. This was actually a much larger painting. This is a small section I cut out afterwards. I do that a lot. This was actually supposedly a lake, but it's better as an ocean. And I actually got 2 pictures out of this. I was trying to find the other one I have. I got 2 paintings out of this. But I've often found that some of my best paintings are when I do detail of something else. It didn't turn out quite the way I wanted. And it turns out better when I look at it afterwards and see what's in it. I learned a lot from my own paintings in my unconscious.
I like the idea that you cropped this out of a bigger painting. I like that possibility.
I've done that many times. And colorful explosion, I started a painting that, again, I didn't particularly like. And I can't remember exactly. That's another one I did.
I'm trying to find, there it is.
There it is, yeah. That's the Concord River.
Oh.
So I didn't particularly like the way it looked, but I got frustrated by it. Then I decided to go wild and just add a bunch of things and colors that I liked. And I put it aside for at least 6 or 7 months because I didn't like it. Then I looked at it recently. I thought, wow, I like this a lot. So sometimes
an important thing to do. Come back around again, look again.
Say again?
Oh, it's important to put something away sometimes and come back around and look at it again. It's kind of like what you did with the other piece. If you saw something else in it, it's important for the artist and for the viewer to pay attention.
Yeah.
This is oh, sorry, Herb.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that this is when you submitted this work, and then we, as a dean and I, were getting more work to review, it was one of these wonderful sort of serendipitous moments where Joan Robio, who has a photograph in the show, the shapes of your two pieces were very similar to each other with some of the curves and the colors. Her piece is called After Summer. And so it was just, we looked at them and said, oh, this is very interesting. So if you come up to the gallery or visit in the virtual space, you'll get to see what I'm talking about, that there's some nice complementary connections to those two pieces.
Oh, cool. I love diagonals and I love shapes. So sometimes I do things, particularly for diagonals, I love and angles. And so like shapes, colors, and learning from my own experience where I can trust my unconscious more, to let it guide me and not be so rigid about realism. I do my best stuff when I start with realism and I end up in fantasy.
Oh, what a wonderful transition.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Herb.
You're welcome. Thank you.
It's a treat to have your pieces in the show.
Likewise.
Did Mark had his hand up, Mark DeQ?
Hi, Aideen. Hi, Rebecca.
It's really good to see you.
Thank you for putting this together. This is so wonderful and such a great selection of pieces and interesting artists too that we've learned here. I have a few questions for everybody. We'll just if I ask a few, just so they're pretty short answer too, though. So Dari, and is Sarah still here? I don't know. I was wondering if you painted any fruits or foods that you don't like to eat.
Let's see. I'm trying to think of the large quantity of fruits and veg I have painted. I'm not a particular fan of spicy peppers, like super spicy. And I know I've painted them peppers because of the interesting shapes that have. They just speak to me. Like I just got yesterday at the farmer's market, they called it a piquillo pepper, but piquillo, when I look it up, it's usually a dried chili. And so I'm not even sure what I bought. And then there was a habanada chili, which is like a habanero, but not spicy. And I am so excited about painting these because they have all these lumps and bumps, and the quote unquote piquillo pepper, the stem is all curly. And I'm really excited about that. So I don't know if I don't like it or not yet until I cook it, because I'm definitely cooking them. So anyway, what about you, Sarah?
I think I eat almost every fruit and vegetable there is, honestly. I have painted vegetables. I've done a number of commission paintings of vegetables and fruit. So once in a while, like someone had me do okra. I don't grow okra, so I hadn't eaten it much. But since painting it, I have a new interest in it now. But yeah, generally it's a rare vegetable or fruit that I won't eat. I'm definitely a lover of them.
Oh, thanks.
Great question.
Mark is a board member of the gallery, for those of you who might not know him. And
Mark did a wonderful job with the movie series that we used to do when we were more in the gallery. It was a wonderful influence on us.
Yeah, the movie for this show could have been Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Oh, that's great. I was thinking that's Feast, but
that would be great.
This is Halloween, so yeah. Right. Bravo.
Is Martha still here too? I had a question for her.
I think Martha's still here. I thought I just saw her.
Yes, I'm here.
She is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would just, as a costume designer and with the tea dress or maybe any other pieces, do you ever work on models or wearing the things you're working on?
I usually don't use models if I'm not working on a theater production, but I have dress forms that I use sometimes.
Oh, okay.
Which is a kind of a statue of a form, of a body form, and I can hang it on that. But usually not at this point when I'm doing the artwork. I just work from what I remember.
Oh, great. So, and I have one last question, okay, for Adriana. Your piece is called You Made You Smile. So what makes you smile?
Actually, it was a bit of a pun. I was thinking about somebody seeing the painting and me telling made you smile. But in fact, it was the smile of my friend that was making me smile. So it was, but in thinking, I have fun with the names. I kind of have a thing for when people go untitled. I like to explore different things that are, fun or are like, puns. So, but yeah, that's basically it. Yeah. But it's very rare because I am, especially these days, I'm thinking so much about climate crisis and other pandemic. I did a whole series about, calamities. So it was fun to have something that it was more, lighter in a way. So yeah.
I have a question if there's time.
We have about 5 minutes, I think.
Just quickly. We have 4 or 5 minutes. Yes, go ahead, Derry.
So the teabag artist. So there was a show at Pine Manor College 5 years ago, and there was an artist, Deborah McDuff did. It was called Coffee and Tea, and so Deborah McDuff did things with coffee filters, and an artist named Thea Shapiro did things with tea bags, and she created all sorts of garments and things out of tea bags. Thea did, and so I was wondering if the BGA's current tea bag artist with this lovely dress and and the brooch with the labels. I was wondering if she knows the other artist Thea Shapiro or has heard about her work, but I don't know anything about this artist's work other than that one show I went to 5 years ago, and it was honestly in conjunction because we knew Deborah McDuff, who was the coffee artist, and so I wasn't keeping track of the tea artist. But anyway, it is such a and I think doesn't the artist at the Belmont Gallery of Art, Kimberly Becker, didn't she do some things with tea bag?
It was actually, well, we had a one-woman show by, all the art was Christiane Corsell, and she uses all repurposed materials, and that show was all repurposed tea bags and tea bag labels, and it was an amazing show with things hanging from the ceiling, and I think she had, and then she had a lot of paintings on the wall, but I know that Richard and I had to hang, it was almost like a hammock that was from the ceiling. It was all made of tea bag labels, I believe. It was quite fascinating.
Yeah, anyway, it's just amazes me the creativity and how people can repurpose. So I was just wondering if any of the artists who are working with repurposing tea bags and coffee filters, et cetera, is there sort of a guild of artists or a connection between us? Because
that's a good question. That's a good question. I don't know if there's a guild, but I know that if you search, you can find many artists that use them. People really like the aged quality of the paper, kind of the automatic kind of old look to it. And I've done some other pieces where I've made fabric to make dresses out of them. And there are just hundreds of things you can do with them. So it's, and
beautiful.
Yeah, it's,
and maybe we can have
and the work
project.
Smells good too. The work smells fragrant.
Yeah, that's
better than
Adriana.
No, my comment is that I have started to paint on the coffee bean bags, and it's a blast. It's great, and the smell is amazing. So I'd be curious to know if there is somebody, if there is a guild for that.
We have just 1 minute left. I saw Fleur had a question, and Ottavio's back with his fish. I don't know. Can I make it a larger picture? Can everyone see Ottavio's fish? I did want to say, I wanted to put up one more slide and welcome you guys to come to the gallery on Sunday for Halloween.
And Martha Heller actually will be gallery sitting. She'll be there. And then we're open November 7th. And we have 2 other artists. Joan Glenner.
I'll be there from 1 to 3.
Yes. And then on the 7th, we have Sylvia Fishman and Joan Glennert will be there. And Naomi's going to be there one day too. We're still working that out.
Okay, now you can see the fish.
We see the fish. It's beautiful, Ottavio.
See it?
Yes.
Let me talk about it.
We're just running out of time, I'm afraid, Ottavio.
We can have a couple of minutes.
has got to wrap it up.
I am a director on the BMC, so they'll tell whoever's on the BMC camera to wait another 2 minutes for me. I'm a director there. I have some call.
I actually have this live until 9 o'clock, so keep it over.
Okay.
Okay, all righty.
Go
for it.
2 more minutes. Who's there?
That's Julie.
Okay. Okay, so the fish is, it's all made of steel, of course. It's 1/2-inch rod, solid rod. This morning I put these scales, what do you call those? All right. The eye will go over here. Look at the eye. There's the eye. All right. It will have a bow tie, as many of my sculpted animals do, and it will have legs. So we'll have a fish with legs, and it will be in my garden, and you're very welcome to see the whole thing.
I think that sounds like a lovely invitation.
It's a 5 fish, yes.
Tell us again where they can find your garden, Ottavio.
The eye will go in tomorrow. There's the eye over here. See that?
It's Wynn Street in Belmont.
28 Wynn Street.
28
Wynn Street. If you see the sculpture, you're there.
We'll have a field trip.
I think Belmont Art Association field trip to Ottavio's.
We can arrange that with Rebecca and Adine.
Next time.
Ladies, you can arrange for that, okay?
Okay.
For a guided tour of the sculptures. Anytime you want, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ottavio.
So Ottavio is also, he makes wine. He's a beekeeper. He has a couple of ideas for a virtual food themed talk that Adine and I are still working on some of the special events that will be taking place through the duration of the show. We're trying to get some things finalized, but we will hopefully have a food themed virtual talk, possibly a food demonstration, a cooking demonstration. And we're still working on trying to put together a simple art making workshop. If Carol Wintle is still there,
or something with tea bags.
Something with tea bags might be interesting. That might be very interesting as well.
Or coffee grounds, Adriana.
Yes.
You think of anything.
Who knows?
And I love the idea of Ottavio doing something with bees. He came to my house because we had a honeybee swarm that was short-lived, thank God, under my eaves, way up where no one could reach it on a ladder. So that was last summer, not this past one. And Ottavio is a fount of knowledge, and it would be great to have him spread some of it around too. So yeah, that would be great.
Do you think it's time to wrap up? Does anybody else want to make any comments?
I know that Fleur had her hand raised at one point.
Fleur, yes.
Fleur.
Okay, I was muted, so I was talking, but nobody was listening.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ottavio.
We all heard you. Didn't we all hear you about your?
You told us all about coming to your garden.
Yeah, we heard all that.
Going to do a field trip.
I interrupted a few times, but you guys weren't listening because I was on mute. Well, I never finished it. I was saying that this fish was inspired by the previous fish, by the fish that you have in the gallery right now. So that
yes, of course.
That fish was a commission. That fish was a commissioned fish. I was ordered by that unfortunate person, and this fish will be my own creation, for my own thing. All right. So again, you can arrange a guided tour. Anybody can come, and I'll explain each each
sculpture
has a story of its own, all right?
I think that sounds like fun. We'll be in touch with you, Ottavio, to organize a field trip. All right?
Okay, I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ottavio.
Ciao.
Fleur, did you have a question, or did anyone else have one last chance?
Or to talk about their work?
Okay, now I'm back.
Oh, has Fleur left? Maybe she left.
Maybe Fleur left.
Yeah, all right. Well, I think yeah, I'm sorry. This is right. Like, we're not sitting together, so of course. So Adine, please.
Oh, I just want to please thank you everybody for coming this evening. It always means so much to us to gather everyone together and see your faces, even if it's just on the screen. It's such a wonderful font of sharing and perspectives. Really love it. Come to the virtualbga.org, and please, please, please find a chance to swing by. If you're in Belmont Center, grab a cup of coffee and come up to the 3rd floor of the Homer Building. It is such a treat to get to see art in person. And Ottavio's in fish, not in person, but in fish. You can see Ottavio's fish hanging there, which is a lovely thing. Rebecca, what else should we say?
I just want to thank everybody. Thank you to all of the artists, because as Adine and I try to remind everybody, we wouldn't have this gallery, we wouldn't have these amazing exhibits without your work. So thank you very much. This show, as we said, it provides nourishment, you know, feast for the eyes, food for the soul. Both shows, you know, in the virtual space and in person are absolutely wonderful. We encourage people to come by. The next several Sundays, we're going to be open, and you'll get to meet artists who are actually there gallery sitting. So think about that as well. It's a free, wonderful, you know, thing to do on a Sunday afternoon. We will have some Halloween candy up there this Sunday. You'll get to meet Martha Heller, as I said. And thank you all. And we will be in touch with some of the special events that we'll be presenting virtually as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ciao.
Great job.
Ciao.
Cheers to Rebecca and Adine.
Thank you, Adine and Rebecca, and thank you to the Belmont Media Center.
Oh yes, of course. Julie DiStefano is our producer tonight. So yes, shout out to Julie.
Great job. Great job, Julie.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
I need to meet Julie. And anyway, thank you so much, Rebecca and Adine. And I have not been to the gallery when the exhibit was up, finalized, but just in progress. And everything was looking wonderful. And so thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.